Hey cutie. Welcome back or welcome to my channel if you're new. My name is Laura. Hi, hello, welcome. I actually have my top 10, technically top 11 Clionadh eyeshadows based on usage. So this is based on the data from my eyeshadow low buy or my eye bank. If you don't know, I tally all of my makeup, usage, and my eye bank is very detailed. It's how I am able to bring makeup into my collection. This is based on usage from like the past year and a half, however long it's been since I started tracking this data. As I continue tracking my makeup in my eyeshadow beauty bank, I'll continue to be able to film these videos with a little bit more tangible data that reflects the shades, I think. However, if you like usage-based videos like this, if you like favorites talking about single shadows, indie brands, makeup in general, project panning, empties, if that kind of thing is your kind of thing, I'd love it if you subscribe to this channel so you can be a cutie too. I've actually pulled out all of my Clionadh shades from my big storage palette. I do have a very large Give Me Glow, is that what this was? Give Me Glow, yeah, large palette. I don't even know if they make these anymore. I don't shop from Give Me Glow. I haven't shopped for a lot of makeup for a while. If you saw my birthday haul, you will beg to differ on that one. I don't know if that's coming already or if it's already posted by the time this is going live, but I brought a decent amount of makeup into my collection over November. Anyway, I have 11 shades pulled out and living in the small stained glass Clionadh eyeshadow palette. I thought it was very fitting. Put the top 10 Clionadh shades in the Clionadh palette and let's talk about them. So again, I was a little surprised with some of the usage that I had in some of these shades, like the shades that I have tallies where other shades that I feel like I like and enjoy more didn't make it in the cut of like the most used or top, technically based on data, shades. But I did write these down so we could kind of talk about shadows in order and based on like the usage. I look at this and like some of the, like a lot of the shades, I'm like, yeah, no, definitely this tracks for like what I like. And then some of the shades I'm like, man, I don't feel like I used that much, but somehow it made it into the cut. So the first item on my list is actually one of those shadows that intimidates me. So I don't know how it's made it into the top 10, top 11 items, but the first 4 are in no particular order because they all have 4 uses. The top amount of uses includes 4 uses. So anything 3 or under didn't make this list. So yeah, it could be just like things that are becoming new favorites are still gaining points in that capacity. Again, this is just solely based on my data from my eye bank tracking, not necessarily the shades that I would consider my top favorites. I don't want to scrape them, and I have rhinestones on my nails now. Also, I did Christmas nails over Thanksgiving weekend, and I love them. There's red. They're just so much fun. So I have my colors pulled out so we can start building my top favorite shadows within here. Just I thought it might be fun to do it this way. Oh, should I zoom in a little bit so you can see better? Okay, so yeah, I mean, this is definitely close. I hope you guys don't mind being this close to me. Technically, you guys are so far away, but we're zoomed nice and close. Starting with the items that I used 4 times, I have used 4 shades from Clionadh 4 times. And this is the grouping that has some colors I wasn't expecting that would make it into my top options, and the first one is one of those. This is the shade Kiln Light, excuse me. And this is not a shade that I would normally gravitate towards. I'm so glad this is picking up on the camera like it is. This has such a beautiful shift. It goes from that like nice burgundy violet to that gold. Oh, it's so cool. So this was a newer one to my collection. This is from a bundle that Josh had bought me for my birthday. last year maybe. This is Kiln Light. It's one of the deeper based multi-chromes, but since it is the light formula of the jeweled multi-chromes, I really enjoy that on the lower lash line, grunging out my lower lash line, or on the outer corner, just kind of bridging the gap between shades. It makes a really pretty shade like that. Just because it is a little bit deeper, I like it kind of placed more strategically in eye looks like that. The other three that are in the number, I guess technically it's number 11 to number 8. All the rest is shades that I definitely am like, yeah, that these definitely make sense for where they are. The first one is such a beautiful shade. This was actually in November's Build Your Own palette. This is the shade Chandelier. It is such a beautiful shade. I'm surprised this one ranked so low in terms of the uses because I feel like I really enjoy this shade and it's so beautiful. But I guess I just prioritize other things within my collection. That is Chandelier. I need to actually pair this with Jessica, you've mentioned that you pair this with Gargoyle, and I do have that, and I want to do that so bad because I think that would be so pretty. Chandelier is so gorgeous. It's more of that like translucent base that has that minty bluey kind of shift to it, that cyan shift. So pretty. Really enjoy that shade. Again, I was surprised it ranked lower in the tracked uses kind of thing. After that, I have the shade Flare, and this one actually surprised me that it was a higher. There was another one that's very similar that I personally feel like I gravitate towards more, but maybe in my head when I'm building those BYOPs, even if I don't use the shade, I'm like, oh no, I've used it recently, even though I've just like enjoyed looking at it recently, not necessarily using it recently. But I wonder if I can pick up the shifts on all of these though. Once it's swatched, I'm like, yeah, for sure. It makes sense why this is one of my favorite shades. But there's another shade that has a very similar base that has just like a bit more blue, like brighter shift than this like green gold. That is what I typically feel like I gravitate more towards, but the numbers speak for themselves. Apparently Flare definitely reigns supreme. It is such a pretty shade, like that orange base to the bright green. That shade would go so well with the Natasha Denona Yucca, technically I guess shade 8. There's no rhyme or reason to the order these are placed, but this is the shade Gloaming from Clionadh, but it's so reflective. Oh, it's so pretty. This has such an intense shift. Yeah, this is a glitter iridescent multi-chrome. I love the iridescent formula by Clionadh. It's just so cool. After that, I have the items that I used 5 times, and there's 3 items that are in this category. So technically it's from 7 to 5. I had 4 in this bucket, and then I actually ended up using one of the shades today. So it graduated to a new usage bucket, which is really exciting in my opinion, that like I'm constantly contributing to the tallies in these shades. So it's just really cool to me. Anyway, the next grouping of shadows again is 5 uses, and again, no rhyme or reason to this bucket, but the first shade I have is the shade Sunbeam, which is a glitter multi-chrome, a pink base, like a bubblegum pink base with a really nice gold sheen to it. I enjoy this shade. It's very intense, and you can, I hope, see that really cool toned base, almost a lavender shift when you hit the light right, and then it just goes into that super intense gold, almost platinum kind of gold shift to it. So again, another stunning shade, something polar opposite, I feel like, from a pink. I have a nice bronze shade next. That's the shade Foiling. I almost pulled this into the BYOP this past month, and I opted against it. So I am happy that I'm showing some other shades love. Now, this is something I really like for going to the office because it's just a really not low impact, but it's like it's a low effort with maximum payoff kind of thing, where it just has that nice sheen to it, and it's not as intense as some of the other multi-chromes. So if you want to have a little bit more subtle shift to the eye, foiling I think is really beautiful. However, when it's on the eye, I feel like it looks even more stunning, just the way that your natural eyes curve. At least for me, I feel like all of our eyes are round, so you get like the full spectrum of what the shade could be. Anyway, long tangent on that one. The last shade in this bucket is the shade Aura. It's another iridescent shade. I have a lot of iridescent shades. There's at least one in each grouping. So this one is a bit more of a lighter particle shimmer glitter speck in here, but it's very similar to that shade Gloaming that was that glitter multi-chrome formula. It's way more pink and just, it's so pretty. I love these kinds of shades. I really fell in love with this type of shade this year. This one's interesting because it has like that nice pink base to it, and then I don't know if it's going to pick up on camera. I can see it in person. There is such an intense green like shift to it in certain angles. Like right here I can see a lot of green in it, green gold, and it's not going to pick up, I don't think. I'm going to say it a lot because I like all of the shades in here for the most part, actually, because I feel like one of the ones in the next grouping I'm a little like, I'm not sure about it still, and the reason why it has so much uses in it because I have been trying to get myself to understand it more. So the next bucket of grouping, the next grouping of shadows is my 6 use products. This is numbers 4 to number 2, all fill in this bucket. There's 3 shades. The first one we're going to talk about is one that I personally would not put as my top Clionadh shades. This is solely because I've been trying to figure out how I like it, and one of you guys, I know, Jessie, you love this shade, and it's Gargoyle. I'm smitten with this shade because the color is just gorgeous. It is one of the deeper based multi-chromes. The color, it matches that green on my nails. Maybe this would be such a nice like Christmassy nail, or not nail, a Christmassy eyeshadow. But one of you has suggested wearing this with chandelier also, and I need to do that. This shade just intimidates me so much. This is really cool. Like when I look at it with the window lights coming in, there's a lot of blue purple that I actually get in this shade, which I don't get in swatch, which maybe that's why I am a little less or a little more hesitant towards this. But I think the purple just makes it super unique. I don't know if it's going to pick up over here either, back away from stuff. Second highest usage grouping is the shade that I'm wearing today, actually. You will never guess what shade I'm wearing today. It is on top of the neon green to give it a bit of a sparkle, and that is this shade here called Illumination. This was in the lower usage bucket until today. I opened the palette when I was doing my makeup and I went, this actually would be really cute on the neon green. So this is, again, the shade Illumination. It's one of the series 1 iridescents, so it's a lot more less glittery, less sparkly, and more of like a flat kind of sheen, almost as if more of a satin finish, if that might be a better way to describe it. I hope you can see it's more of just like that regular metallic, kind of almost leaning towards a satin finish, but it's really beautiful. It has more of that goldy to like limey green. Again, it's really pretty. If you sheer it out, it's going to just kind of blend into nothing. It looks so gorgeous. It's very similar actually to the shade I have on my lids right now, which is Cobweb by Pretties for Your Face. I feel like it could be very similar. Anyway, 6 uses as of today. Very happy about that. Then I did just sort with all of my Clionadh shadows. I didn't separate them if they were in a palette or not, because you can buy this independently as a single now. And I'm almost needed in my mind treat the Dragon Fruit palette as a singles palette, like an assortment of singles in a way. This I almost flirted with putting on my eyes today, which would have taken it into, it would have like changed things around a little bit. However, the shade Bubbles here is so pretty. Again, I have a type. I love iridescent shades so much. This is such a beautiful one. This is similar to Gloaming in terms of that super ultra glittery kind of formula. This is different from Gloaming though in like terms of the shade. This is much more gold, much more greeny. It's so pretty. Oh my gosh. It has more of that like cyan minty kind of shift. But as like, look at my hand right now, nothing. Wha-bam. It's so cool. It's so cool. All right, moving on to my top shade. And actually, when I was pulling my shadows out, as I kind of was making my way down the list, I'm like, man, I can't believe I haven't gotten to this shade yet. I feel like I use it so much. And then it was number one. I'm like, okay, this makes sense. Okay, it tracks. I've really fallen in love with this shade recently. This is the shade Glisten. Again, it's an iridescent. Clearly, I love iridescent shades. This is now the 5th one that's in this collection of top 10s, which is just bananas to me that there's five iridescent shadows in here. This one's similar to Gloaming, but it's a little less glittery, where Gloaming is super, super chunky glitter. This is still chunky, yes. However, it's not nearly as chunky, and it has more of a cool toned purple than that warm toned like red violet. This is almost like an ultraviolet, a blurple indigo. But I don't know if you can really tell, it does have some of that like super intense, like reddy, pinky kind of shift to it. And that's why I like this so much, because it is so flexible. So you can wear it with cool toned, you can bridge the gap into a warm tone to kind of change from like, if you have like a warm inner crease to a cool outer crease, you can kind of bridge gaps that way. So I just think these shadows are so cool, so interesting, and so wonderful. I really like the iridescent ones too, because you really can transform a multitude of shadows that you already have. You can change how matte shadows look. You can change how like shimmers look. It's just so much fun with these iridescent shades. And let's get this. And this would be my colors, like my perfect Clionadh color story, I guess. Again, this is strictly based on usage data that I have been collecting and tallying over the past year, 2 years, however long it is. So I just find it very interesting that I have a very well-versed, I think, assortment. And it almost makes me laugh looking in the viewfinder. It almost looks like my 2 grungy Christmas colors. They go with my nails. But I just also want to honorably mention a couple other shadows within my collection that I think technically are my most used shadows because I bought them. They were my first Clionadh shadows. And they definitely look more well-loved than the counterparts that are in the top 10 palette. So I'll start with the one that I would personally consider the lowest in that regard, and that is the shade Opulent. And it's not because this is not a beautiful shade. This is so stunning. Just the dip that I have in it is the least substantial. The shade UV here, I have a humongous dip in that. That is organic usage within this shade. Then another one in my collection that I had in a project pan and hit pan and pan those eyeshadows. It didn't take me that long. However, I did tunnel into this shade. So I just want to mention that. This is the shade Ornamental. It's stunning. It's kind of like a taupey green base with intense green shift, green gold kind of shift. It's very pretty. I would consider it more of a neutral kind of multi-chrome. And then my absolute favorite that was initially in my collection that I truly hit pan organically, like this is just based on me using it so often, the shade Fluoresce here. This is the kind of the one that set it all off for me in terms of the multichromes. I hope you can see how intense and giant that dip is. It's like I took my thumb and just like smushed into the shadow. I know the pan is pretty minuscule in this in terms of like how large the dip is, but I love this shadow and I would consider this one of my absolute favorites in my assortment. Now, if I were to just visually pick my favorites, I might have a very different assortment of shadows than this. if I film this video in a year, in 2 years, I probably will also have a much different assortment of shades than this. It'll be interesting if we reflect over the next couple years, I mean, even if I check in 6 months and let you know my favorites at the moment, it'll be interesting to see if my usage and my mindset change what my top shadows are. But if you have tried Clionadh in your life, let me know a couple of your favorites. Let me know if you spotted any of your favorites. I know someone in my comments is going to let me know they love Gargoyle and Chandelier so much. I can't wait to hear what shades you like the most if you have Clionadh in your collection, or maybe you've just been pining after Clionadh. Let me know the ones that you've been really tempted on purchasing. They've been releasing some new ones that definitely have caught my eye. Like, I think it's Myrrh. It's that green with like a UV shift. I'm trying to tell myself no, but it's tempting. It is tempting. But that is it for this video. I hope you guys are staying healthy, sane, and safe. Happy December. I hope you guys are having a good one so far, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.